sport of the man whose motor racing career seemed to be over 2 years ago. Niki Lauda won the first of his 2 world titles in 1975, driving for Ferrari. Only Fangio, Jack Brabham and Jackie Stewart have won it more often. The following year, at the Nürburgring in the German Grand Prix, Lauda came so close to death, a priest administered the last rites over him. Burned and disfigured, Lauda willed himself to live. Such is the man's amazing courage that 6 weeks later he was back behind the wheel, racing again. Shortly after that accident, Lauda talked to me about his philosophy for survival.
When I came to the hospital, you know, you feel a kind of you feel like you are very tired, and you would like to go and sleep. But you know, it's not just going sleeping; it's something else. And then you just fight with the brain. You hear noises and you hear voices, and you just try to listen what they're saying, and you try to keep your brain working, and to get the body ready to fight against the illness. And I think this was very good that I did that, because in that way I survived. In life you need a certain amount of luck, but now the question is how much luck you need. I think the luck is the minimum part of it. I think it is. I think you can steer a lot your life, you know what I mean? You have the wheel. I think human beings can do much more for themselves than they think.
That same year, 1976, Lauda lost the World Championship by a mere point to James Hunt. In 1977, he was winning again. Here in South Africa, he had his first victory since the crash, and he built on it until he'd taken the world crown for a second time. By now, Lauda had established himself as a man of almost superhuman willpower. By 1979, Lauda had had enough of Ferrari. He joined the not-so-competitive Brabham team. No one knew it then, but this non-championship race at Imola was his last victory, his last dice with a rival, his last race. 2 weeks later, he made the decision to retire.
I sometimes feel a little bit of not all that power, because especially the pros I I only finished 2 races this year. So, you know, it's all not funny anymore. So it really does get boring.
But 2 years away from motor racing seemed to have bored Niki just as much. Last September, he was having hush-hush test drives with McLaren at Donington, amid rumours that his airline business was in debt. Lauda was back.
If you want to go into motor racing and do a job like this, you have to have your heart and your head 100% for it. The money and all these other things, if you are good, they come automatically. If you are bad, they don't come. So this is not the drive. The drive is just that I like to challenge myself to see what I've lost in 2 years not driving, if I'm still able to drive quick, how the other cars go, how the other drivers drive, and just see where I stand today after 2 years being in pension.
And Niki Lauda joins us now from South Africa. Niki, now that you've had a chance to have a few runs in the car out there at Kyalami, how much of the old skill do you think you've still got?
I was very surprised to start here my first day after 2 years not driving. And my Marlboro MP4 worked so well that on the first day I think I was 4th quickest, and yesterday 6th quickest. But you have to take into consideration that there are basically now 2 types of racing cars, one with a turbo engine and one with a normal engine in, which I've got a car with a normal engine in, so the turbo cars are here going 30 kilometers quicker because they have 80 more horsepower. So the maximum I really can do is to stay ahead of the Formula Ford.
Now, of course, you're reunited with your old partner from Brabham, John Watson. How are the pair of you going to race now? Who's number 1 and who's number 2? Have you sorted that out?
Well, to be honest, I never ask who is number 1 and number 2 because I don't care what number I am. The most important thing is I get all the good bits and pieces, and that's what I'm getting.
When did the urge to come back really get at you, Niki? How long after you retired did you suddenly think to yourself, I've got to go back?
To be honest, the first year I didn't think a bit about it at all. Last year, around August, when I went to the Austrian Grand Prix, I felt the first time the racing fever coming up in myself, and then it developed so that in Monza I was anxious to get in one of these cars and try them again, which I then did in Donington. And there I felt that I'd still be able to drive, and then I sorted all the contracts out, and that's what I'm here for in Africa.
Now, you see, we keep reading here in the papers in England that it's very much a financial reason that you've come back. We keep reading stories that your airline, your private airline, is in debt and that you need money. Are these stories true?
To get in the dangerous sport as motor racing is, in because of money or some other interests, commercially, there's no way you can drive quick. Either you want to drive these racing cars, then you go quick anyway and do a good job, then the money comes. If you don't want to drive, it's better you stay at home.
What about your airline? Is that continuing in business while you're motor racing?
We're operating 4 airplanes in the moment, which we're doing since 2 years. This is going to continue as it is. Everything is running perfect, so there's no problem there whatsoever. Just people interpret in my comeback whatever they think, in their opinion, is right. But, you know, I'm back in motor racing because I like it.
What does your wife think about it, Marlene? Does she find that it's all right, or does she worry about you?
I personally think if a racing driver has a wife which says, go racing, it's good, she must be really stupid, because it's a dangerous sport, she knows. But she accepts what I'm doing. Certainly she's not happy about it, but she at least lets me do what I like, which I think is good.
How long do you think you might go on, Nicky? How long have you actually signed for?
I signed for 1 year, but I must say in the past I always signed for 1 year. I will go on in motor racing as long as I like it, and as long as the circumstances around me are in the right way I like to have it. And as it is perfect in the moment, I see myself running in motor racing for a long time.
And other of the things we read is that you're being paid $3 million. Is that right for 1 year's racing?
I would like to have $3 million. If you can find the guy who wrote all that, please send him to me, and then I ask him for the $3 million.
That's simply not true.
Right.
Do you think that you are going to enjoy it? You see, I mean, we all know what you went through, Nicky, and I suppose sometimes you must get terrible thoughts about that crash in '76. Do you think you can still drive and put that right out of your mind? You see, to the ordinary person, it seems impossible.
Look, I had a crash in '76 and I got world champion in '77, so if I would not have overcome all my fear and anxious things I had after the accident, I would never have made it. The reason I retired in '79, because I just had enough of driving around in circles, and because I raced for 10 years. So after having 2 years rest, I want to come back and see what I can do, but it's much easier now to come back out of the airplanes in racing again than my comeback was after the accident, because after the accident it was much more difficult to me, so I see no problem today, as long as I enjoy it and like it, to continue racing without any fear.
Now, the MP4 that you're driving, now that's one of a new generation of cars that have come along, really, since you retired. How does it compare to the cars that you were driving?
You know, the cars today, with the regulation as they are now, the suspension is very hard, so you have to get used to the way these cars are laid out in the moment. But my MP4 is laid out so that even with the funny regulation, the cars being so hard, the car still gives a smooth ride, and the most important thing for me, it's going very quick.
So would you like to give us a prediction? Where do you think you might finish on Saturday?
It's very difficult to say because the official practice will start tomorrow. If my car goes as well as it did yesterday and the day before in the unofficial practice, I hope to qualify around 7 or 8. That means hopefully to be the first normal engine car. And then in the race, I just have to stay in this position and hope that the turbos blow up.
Nicky, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And of course, everybody here wishes you the very best of luck with your comeback.
All 31 Grand Prix drivers assembled in South Africa for the start of the 1982 racing season have refused to take their cars onto the Kyalami circuit to practice or race. In reply, the governing body FISA says it will cancel the drivers' racing licenses, perhaps for good, and postpone Saturday's race. That threat has been temporarily lifted, providing the drivers turn out for practice tomorrow morning. Philip Hayton reports.
This was the Kyalami circuit near Johannesburg this morning, with everything set for the official practice laps for Saturday's Grand Prix. The cars had been assembled and tuned. The only thing missing, the drivers. 31 of them sat in a bus after walking off the track. But when they attempted to leave the circuit, they ran up against a roadblock. A minibus had been used to sabotage their escape. After a few minutes of angry exchanges, Jacques Lafitte got off the bus to remove the obstruction. He seemed to have more trouble with the minibus than with his Ligier. After making their escape, the drivers, with an escort of newsmen, headed for a Johannesburg hotel. The drivers are unhappy with clauses in what are called their super licenses, issued by FISA, the sports controlling organization. Among other things, the drivers don't want to reveal personal financial information. Former world champion Niki Lauda, who's due to make his racing comeback this year, had this to say.
Very disappointed because the only reason I'm here for is race. So let's hope it's happening soon.
You're not thinking about giving it up because of these problems?
No. Not so easy.
Organisers of the South African Grand Prix acted as go-betweens, travelling between the rival factions in a military helicopter, an indication perhaps of the government's concern. While officials met at the racetrack all day, former world champion James Hunt offered his solution to settle the dispute.
They're backed up against the wall. I think it's a great shame that a strike should take place. I mean, I personally think that what both sides should do right now is say, shelve all the problems for the purpose of this weekend. The powers that be could waive the whole problem of super licenses, just let everybody get in their cars and drive and have a race, with an agreement to go back and meet in Europe, round a table properly, and thrash the whole thing out before the next Grand Prix, for which there's plenty of time.
South Africa is starved of much international sport, so the Grand Prix has taken on an added significance. As a cabinet minister has put it, the Grand Prix, with its 600 million television viewers worldwide...
Striking Formula One drivers in South Africa that unless they compete in the Grand Prix there on Saturday, they could face a lifetime ban. All the top drivers due to take part have said they won't compete if they're forced to sign a new super license. They say it's unfair. The license demands that drivers stay with the same team for 3 years, that they don't criticise FISA, the governing body, and that they reveal their personal financial details before they actually drive.
Today was supposed to have been the first official practice for the Grand Prix. The cars and mechanics were ready, but missing from the pits, the 36 Formula One drivers. Led by Niki Lauda, who celebrates his return to Grand Prix racing this week, they were boarding a bus at the race circuit and going nowhere near the track until they'd sorted out their differences with FISA, motor racing's governing body. So desperate were the organisers to avoid a walkout that they blocked the bus's exit from the course. It was quickly removed, and then a race of an entirely different nature began. Dozens of journalists jockeying for pole position as they hurtled after the bus heading towards Johannesburg. Watching the flying circus, a rather bemused Niki Lauda. The drivers who locked themselves into a Johannesburg hotel feel their new super license, which they have to sign before racing, damages their chances of signing new and more profitable racing contracts.
So our back's been put against the wall, so we're asking for some changes on the super license just to make it even for the drivers as much as it is for the constructors, and I hope that we can achieve a compromise.
Meanwhile, talks between race officials and the driver's representative carried on at the circuit throughout the afternoon. The Grand Prix organiser, who stands to lose £1 million if the race is cancelled, was particularly bitter.
Well, total anxiety and anger, because here we are again with a situation, everything's gone so smoothly up until this point, and now we're in a situation which I vowed and promised never to get back into again, on, off, and, you know, it's just mind-boggling.
And at the end of the day, as the cars were wheeled away, the drivers were given a final ultimatum. Settle by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning or face a life suspension from World Championship racing. Peter Sharp, News at 10 at Kyalami Racetrack, Johannesburg.
There are licenses between the drivers and the sport's governing body. At one stage, all 31 drivers involved locked themselves away and refused to race. Well, today they changed their minds. The Grand Prix goes on as originally planned tomorrow. Practice took place today, and from Kyalami, Murray Walker now reports.
The totally expected happened because turbocharged cars are on the first 3 rows of the grid, first to 6th fastest. Niki Lauda and John Watson both went off the course in their Marlborough cars, but they're both perfectly all right and will be taking part in the race tomorrow. But in 14th position on the grid, in the turbocharged Tolman, is Englishman Derek Warwick. Well, Derek, you had an incredible experience last night in that Formula One dormitory at Johannesburg. Tell me, what exactly went on there?
Well, to be quite honest, for me, it was quite extraordinary because you've got people like Villeneuve and Peroni there, and we just sort of messed around and had a few discussions over the various decisions that had to be made. And the biggest point I'd like to make is that we all stayed together, and to a certain extent I believe we won because there is a race tomorrow.
Derek, you say you've won. The FISA people say they have made no concessions at all, and they're going to discuss it next week. But nevertheless, you believe that you have made your point.
Well, yes, I mean, we were here to make a point, and, I mean, for sure there was going to be a Grand Prix. I mean, that never ever crossed our minds. There was always going to be a Grand Prix, and there is a Grand Prix.
To go into motor racing and do a job like this, you have to have your heart and your head 100% for it. The money and all these other things, if you are good, they come automatically. If they are bad, they don't come.
After a short winter layoff, which saw double world champion Niki Lauda decide to end his retirement, and not, as you heard, for money, the Grand Prix world came happily to sunny Kyalami, high up in the South African Transvaal, only to face a protest against unacceptable regulations from the drivers, which involved all of them in missing the first day's practice. But now the first Grand Prix of 1982 is ready to go, with new drivers and new cars, 7 of which have an enormous advantage over the rest. For Kyalami's altitude is over 6,000 feet, and that means the turbocharged Renaults and Ferraris, the new Brabham BMWs and the Tolman have at least a 150 horsepower bonus over most of their rivals. And didn't it show up in practice? For the fastest 6 cars on the starting grid are turbocharged, with the 1980 South African Grand Prix winner, Frenchman René Arnoux, in pole position in his Renault, ahead of world champion Nelson Piquet in his new Brabham BMW. Third fastest, Gilles Villeneuve's new Ferrari, with Riccardo Patrese fourth, making his first race appearance as a Brabham driver. Fifth, it's Alain Prost Renault, with Didier Pironi's Ferrari sixth. And then the non-turbos, headed by Keke Rosberg's Williams seventh, and teammate Carlos Reutemann 8th. Derek Warwick's a superb 14th in the Tolman Turbo, with Nigel Mansell a lowly 18th in the JPS 87, and Derek Daly 24th in the Theodore. So it looks like a certain turbo car win here at Kyalami, but 77 laps of the 2.6-mile circuit in today's heat is a long, taxing way to go.
Well, with the rather unfortunate political dramas and aggravations now out of the way, thank goodness, or certainly out of the way for the moment, we finally got a race. But of course, this is going to demonstrate a total superiority of the turbos that we won't see later in the year when we go away from the altitude of Kyalami racetrack, where the turbos enjoy a big advantage because they can run their engines by pumping the thin air from 6,000 feet in at normal sea level pressure, therefore running at about 500 horsepower, whereas the normally aspirated cars huff and puff away to get only about 400 horsepower because they're 20% down, bearing in mind that there's 20% less air here for them to breathe. However, it looks, because of sea level testing in the winter, as if turbo is going to be the way to go this year. The turbos were quicker at sea level as well, around a fairly twisty track, and the big question is going to be their reliability. It's very hot here today. Turbos don't like it too hot, as do no racing cars, but they're particularly sensitive about it. So we just have to hope that we get a race of a reasonable pattern, some fun and games.
Arnoux in the turbocharged Renault. In second position, Nelson Piquet in the Brabham BMW. Third, Gilles Villeneuve in the Ferrari. In fourth position, Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham BMW. Fifth fastest, Alain Prost in the turbocharged Renault. Sixth fastest, Didier Pironi in the Ferrari. Then the 2 Williams cars, 7th and 8th, Keke Rosberg and Carlos Reutemann. 9th and 10th, John Watson, and a brilliant performance by Michele Alboreto in the two. And completing the round dozen, the top 6 rows, 11th fastest, Jacques Lafitte in the Talbot, and Eliseo Salazar. That is René Arnoux in pole position. The engine wheels rising, there's an enormous amount of horsepower down on the grid, the weather conditions are perfect, the course is dry, the temperature is hot, ideal racing conditions, although there are some dull clouds overhead. Nelson Piquet is alongside René Arnoux, then Villeneuve and Patrese. There you see the red light, and it is starting at the back, and it's go. Arnoux and Prost get away down to Crowthorne Corner, the right-hander. This is the longest straight in Grand Prix racing. From there, they go down into Barbecue Bend, up into 5th gear, into the Yuxke sweep, the left-hander, and you can see the lead now that the 2 cars in front have got.
Yes, well, the Renaults got their turn to turbochargers work. They've been able to start well last year, but the 2 Brabhams seem to have a terrible struggle getting off the line. However, I don't think that's going to be a big problem. They've got so much power here. Overtaking shouldn't be a problem, unless, of course, it can match up a straight line. But it was interesting to see that the Brabham turbo was obviously difficult to get going with the throttle lag that turbos have. And so now they've got a little bit of work to do. Piquet will have to make his way up.
And into the Armco, in fact, into the catch fencing on the very first lap. That's Jean-Pierre Jarier, who is the slowest man to qualify in the Osella. He is obviously perfectly all right. And meantime, bursting out of West Bank and in across the line go the leaders. And it is René Arnoux in the Renault, leading Alain Prost in 2nd position. Well up are the 2 Ferraris of Gilles Villeneuve and Didier Pironi. And you can see the gap now that the 4 turbos, there is the first and the second of the 2 Brabhams. So it is 2 Renaults leading 2 Ferraris, and in 5th and 6th position the Brabham BMW turbos of world champion Nelson Piquet and his teammate Riccardo Patrese.
Yes, and Keke Rosberg is well up there. He's made a fantastic start. I think he's lying in 5th place behind the 2 Ferraris. He qualified extremely well. He's done, as expected, very well. He was quicker than Reutemann, which comes not a big surprise, although Reutemann went a lot better than him on race trim this morning in the warm-up. But Rosberg has obviously put that behind him and has made an absolutely stalling start. But I have to say, I think he'll be pushed to hold on against this huge power advantage. I think the Cosworth powered cars are running not much more than 400 horsepower at this altitude, while the turbos are running around about 550, so it's a huge thing. 2 Ferraris come under the bridge in turn 4. Rosberg still hanging on, I think, in 5th place.
Well, totally predictably, the turbos dominating the race already. Indeed, Adrian Reynard in the March team has worked out that he expects his cars to be lapped by the leading turbo after about 12 laps, and they will probably be lapped 5 or 6 times during the race itself. Villeneuve and Pironi there. This is the first time you've seen these new turbocharged Ferraris in a race, because they are quite different cars from the one which drove in 1981. Looking to me as though they're closing up just a little on the 2 flying Renaults in front of René Arnoux leading on lap 2 out of 77 as we look at the Dow, the leader. There is Arnoux, behind him maintaining team station Alain Prost, and the Renault 2 has been significantly improved since last year. That is 3 laps completed. Villeneuve is still 3rd and Pironi is still 4th. Now a developing gap, and it is Keke Rosberg who goes through next. And on lap 4 then, Keke Rosberg is well up in 7th position as the leaders go round Crowthorne. There in the Brabham. And here is race leader René Arnoux.
René Arnoux taking it pretty steadily, Alan Prost following him. They're driving a fairly undramatic race up front. The Ferraris are there, but they're not an immediate threat. There seems to be some sort of a drama. We've got a lot of smoke. Somebody's obviously off the track. The driver out of the car. It looks like Nelson Piquet to me. Piquet was running in 12th place, so he's obviously...
About the loss of sound there from Kyalami circuit, but with Alan here, we'll try and keep you posted on the cars as much as we possibly can. Nelson Piquet got an early problem there, Alan.
Yeah, it looked like he lost it going into the right-hander at the end of the straight. A very difficult corner at the best of times, but he's out of the car and okay, that's the main thing.
Well, Rennie... All right, well, it looks as though we've got audio back from Johannesburg, so let's go back to Murray Walker and James Hunt.
That's fuel for the turbos to cover the race. The turbos used all that car, probably carrying as much as 40-50% more petrol to do the journey.
On lap 5, then, René Arnoux leading Alain Prost with Villeneuve and Pironi in 3rd and 4th position, but Keke Rosberg driving an absolutely magnificent race. Nelson Piquet out of it. We seem to have lost Mansell from our lap chart. The 2 Renaults go through with 5 laps completed. Then the 2 Ferraris, no change in still, Villeneuve and Pironi. And now it is in 5th position, Crazy, with in 6th position, Keke Rosberg. In 7th place is Carlos Reutemann. So the 2 Williams are doing well, and with 1 turbo out, Nelson Piquet, the reigning world champion, it is by no means certain that the turbos are all going to finish this race. The heat conditions are demanding, and the 2 Renaults, which are leading now, as we look at René Arnoux, number 16, the race leader, and Alain Prost, number 15, with the red patch on the nose of his car. They may be well ahead, but they've still got turbo opposition behind them, the like of which they have not had in the past, because the Ferrari...
Lauda ist ja berühmt dafür, sich seine Rennen einzuteilen. Eine seiner hervorragenden Eigenschaften ist ja, dass er im Voraus ziemlich genau sagen kann, was mit einem Auto erreichbar ist. Wenn er an 2. Stelle gelegen ist, Sie erinnern sich, dann hat er eigentlich nie versucht, mit Ach und Krach und mit jedem Risiko den 1. Platz zu erobern und dafür von der Straße zu fliegen. Andererseits, wenn er ein Auto hatte, mit dem er 4. oder 5. werden konnte, dann ist Niki Lauda auch so gefahren, dass er 4. oder 5. wurde und nicht zum Beispiel 10. Ein Wunschtraum für Lauda wäre heute natürlich einer der...
And we have no sign of Nigel Mansell. As we look across the circuit, we can see a stricken car, and it is certainly that of Nigel Mansell out of the race. Well, the Williams' cars are doing well in the form of Carlos Reutemann and Keke Rosberg. And somewhere out there watching them in Australia with all the other Channel 9 viewers is ex-world champion Alan Jones. And that is Villeneuve's car. Villeneuve with a great plume of smoke behind him. As I forecast, the turbos are not going to last this race. Villeneuve has very clearly blown the car, and we are looking now to see where ex-world champion Niki Lauda is, with Villeneuve certainly out and going into the pits.
Yes, Lauda's running in about 10th or 11th place on the track. Watson is, well, that's a shame looking at Villeneuve. I hope he's not putting oil on the track. It's probably just a burning turbocharger. They tend to eat the turbines and then do a piston. But they often say he's putting oil down.
Auf diesen Sandstreifen gewechselt ist. Nelson Piquets bleibt beim BMW Turbo im ersten Rennen als ausgeschieden. Ausgeschieden auch der neue Ferrari 126 T2. Das ist das Chassis, das der Engländer Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite konstruiert hat. Zum ersten Mal in der Geschichte, dass ein Engländer ein Ferrari-Chassis gebaut hat. Indirekt ist das so zu verstehen, dass Enzo Ferrari zum ersten Mal zugibt, das, was seine Fahrer Niki Lauda unter anderem schon vor vielen Jahren behauptet haben, dass bei Ferrari der Motor der beste Bestandteil ist und das Chassis einige Schwächen hat, vor allem auf relativ schnellen Rennstrecken. Und Kyalami ist schnell, 222 Kilometer pro Stunde, der Schnitt des Trainingsschnellsten René Arnoux. Die Trainingsbestzeit war 1:06,351.
Okay, well, let's go back to Kyalami now with René Arnoux leading the 1982 South African Grand Prix.
John Watson with behind him in 8th position Jacques Lafitte in the Taubert. Then it is Michele Alvaretto, and in 10th position ex-double world champion Niki Lauda. So the question is, can the Renaults maintain their reliability? They have already seen Villeneuve out. They have already seen Nelson Piquet out. That has removed their turbo opposition to 2 cars. That of Didier Pironi in the Ferrari and Riccardo Patrese in the second Brabham. Right-hander at Crowthorne, you should see Didier Pironi come through in the Ferrari. We are on lap 10. And only had to change gear ratios to make the cars absolutely perfect for the circuit. And they're starting to close up on and lap tail enders. That's Chico Serra's car, the Fittipaldi, which is now looking very tired indeed. Unfortunately, the Fittipaldi have got enough to develop their cars properly. And already, lap 10, Chico Serra from Brazil has been lapped by Arnoux, and now Alain Prost. And Arnoux, with Prost behind him, is now some 6 seconds ahead of Didier Pironi. Villeneuve has blown his Ferrari, and there, number 18 was Raul Bertel, the ex-Formula 3 driver, the Brazilian. Letting the leaders through, and we're getting an absolutely stupefying demonstration of Renault turbo superiority. And by the way, in practice as a result of a puncture, damaged the wheel. The car was perfectly all right. And Prost has actually gone round in the unofficial practice even faster than René Arnoux, the race leader, went in the official practice in something just over 1 minute and 5 seconds. 5 seconds faster than the previous lap record. The 2 Renaults. Round that sweeping right-hander, this is a 3rd gear bend. Then they accelerate up into 4th, round barbecue bend, which is where they are now, 155 miles an hour. To the Yungke sweep, the left-hander that they've just completed, and they're now doing 180 miles an hour as they go up to and round Sunset Bend. West Bank, where he bursts out into the top straight, to the longest and fastest straight in Grand Prix racing, up to the crest, into fifth gear, and as he goes over the crest, it is 200 miles an hour. Now, Arnoux through. Prost through, first and second.
Prost is having a go. He's been pulling out a little bit behind. I'm not following Lenny Arnoux in the slipstream, and I had a feeling that Prost might be running a little bit hot because he seems to be moving out to the cool air, which would give more air to his radiators and not taking advantage of the tow. But one was waiting for him to make his move. I don't know what the Renault orders are to their drivers, but Prost is now really established as number one, and is probably one of the favourites, if not the favourite, for the World Championship this year.
Slim Borgut im Tierrennen mit der Startnummer 4, der Schwede, der...
Well, that is Slim Borgut, the Swedish driver, in the second of the two Tyrrell cars, and we think we definitely have a new star in the Tyrrell team in the form of Michele Alboreto, who has driven magnificently in practice and was 10th fastest, not only in practicing, but in the practice warm-up period. It's Alain Prost, it is indeed Alain Prost in the lead, and we've missed, unfortunately, the passing manoeuvre. Well, I can't tell you where they passed, we didn't see it. All I can tell you is that you now look at race leader Prost and Arnoux.
10 unverändert, erster Arnoux, zweiter Prost, dritter Pironi, vierter Patrese, fünfter Reutemann, sechster Rosberg im Kampf mit Watson, achter Lafitte, neunter Alboreto, zehnter Lauda. Niki Lauda weiß, dass es ein sehr, sehr langes Rennen wird. 77 Runden, es ist sehr heiß hier, weit über 30 Grad, drückend schwül, die Reifen sind natürlich am Limit, speziell mit vollen Tanks und darum auch ein sehr geschickter und ein bisschen vorsichtiger Beginn Niki Laudas in der Anfangsphase dieses Grand Prix von Südafrika. Slim Borgut wurde überrundet, Boxensignal hier aus der Tyrrell-Box. Eddie Cheever nach seinem Boxenstopp wieder im Rennen. Und Alain Prost gibt seinem Teamkollegen René Arnoux gerade so viel Druck, dass Arnoux weiß, der Teamkollege ist knapp hinter ihm und er greift ihn nicht direkt an, aber er ist nicht gewillt, allzu viel Platz zu machen und zurückzubleiben.
Well, back at Kyalami, Alain Prost has gone past his teammate René Arnoux, and he is in the lead. So it's the two Renaults, but they've had a change in position. Alain Prost in the lead in the 1982 South African Grand Prix.
Well, if there is a battle between René Arnoux and Alain Prost, and it results in one or both of them going off, and it well could do, the Renault management in the form of Gerard Larousse, their very experienced team manager, is not going to be best pleased. Coming up to complete another lap. So there they go, and the gap now is extending with Didier Pironi some 5 seconds behind the Renaults in third position, and the leaders are rapidly lapping the tail-enders and midfield men, and there is now an enormous gap between Didier Pironi, who is in third position, and Riccardo Patrese, who is fourth, whilst we wait for the fifth man, Carlos Reutemann, who is in the points to go through, and he does so with Nicky Rosberg in sixth position, just ahead of John Watson, who is in seventh place. So, predictably, the Ford Cosworth, normally aspirated, that means non-turbocharged cars, are now starting to challenge on reliability. You are looking at Didier Pironi, the brilliant young Frenchman who has won Grand Prix in his time and should have won far more had he not had reliability problems. He finished first in the Belgian Grand Prix in 1979 when he was starting to make a name for himself, and and he's driven for two and for Ligier before he moved to Ferrari. He's closing up now on one of the two Alfa Romeos, that of Bruno Giacomelli, the young Italian. So a recap on the positions: in the lead, René Arnoux, second Alain Prost, third Didier Pironi, fourth Carlos Reutemann, fourth is Riccardo Patrese, fifth is Carlos Reutemann, and sixth position Keke Rosberg. Pironi round the left-hander, up that short straight. It's a very, very quick circuit here at Kyalami. As you know, the fastest lap in practice by Keke Rosberg was 138.5. René Arnoux was 138.4 miles an hour, and that makes Kyalami very, very quick indeed. Enormous crowd, incidentally. They turned out eagerly to enjoy Grand Prix motor racing again, and there is the race leader, René Arnoux, now on his 18th lap. There is René Arnoux, and behind him Alain Prost, with the Alfa Romeo sandwiched in between them. It's Alain Prost, it is indeed Alain Prost in the lead, and we've missed, unfortunately, the passing manoeuvre has been missed. The confident assertion that it was René Arnoux was wrong, because up into the lead on lap 18 in the South African Grand Prix of 1982 goes Alain Prost, the man who won 3 Grand Prix in 1981 and is hotly tipped to be the world champion of 1982. Well, I can't tell you where they passed. We didn't see it. All I can tell you is that you now look at race leader Prost and Arnoux as they come up to number 10, Eliseo Salazar.
Well, Carlos Reutemann is doing very well. He's only a couple of seconds behind Riccardo Patrese. He's holding on. He's not making much impression at the moment, but he's comfortably leading the normally aspirated cars race. And meanwhile, the Renault's Alain Prost cruises on. He passed René Arnoux about 5 laps ago. He outbraked at the end of the straight, and now has established himself, although as we saw a couple of laps ago, Arnoux appeared to be challenging him. Now he's dropped back a little bit now, and possibly that was on team orders from team manager Jean Larousse oh, hang on, and that's Patrese, and he looks to be slowed down and in trouble. Yes, he's coming into the pits, but he's limping. He may not even quite make the pit. So Patrese in trouble, to be expected with the turbos and their first outing. They're very difficult engines technically to get right.
So as Riccardo Patrese comes into the pits to retire, and Gordon Murray, the Brabham BMW team chief, told me before the race he would be surprised if both his cars finished the race. How right he was. On lap 20, the race order is Alain Prost leading in the turbocharged Renault from his teammate René Arnoux, with in third place Didier Pironi in the Ferrari. In fourth position now, it's Carlos Reutemann. So the Williams cars are coming up through the field. In fifth position, it is Keke Rosberg. In sixth position, it is John Watson. Turbocharged cars first, second, third, and Ford Cosworth powered cars in fourth, fifth, and sixth position, with Niki Lauda coming up through the field in his first Grand Prix since he retired in 1979, and he is now in seventh position.
Gelingt die Leitung zwischen Kyalami und Wien aufrecht zu erhalten. Im Bild Riccardo Patrese, er spricht mit Brepheim-Rennleiter Dieter Staffert. Damit ist die Premiere der Brepheim BMW Turbos also leider nach 20 Runden endgültig vorbei. Riccardo Patrese ausgeschieden und vorher schon nach der 6. Runde Weltmeister Nelson Piquet. einen Grand Prix-Sieg im allerersten Rennen. Das ist ja etwas, das es für ein neues Team, für eine neue Marke oder sogar für ein neues Auto nur ganz, ganz selten gibt. Ich erinnere mich, Ferrari hatte hier vor 3 Jahren einen Doppelsieg, Villeneuve und Scheckter mit einem völlig neuen Modell. Walter Wolf hat mit Jody Scheckter 1977 sein allererstes Rennen, den Grand Prix von Argentinien gewonnen, aber es wäre wahrscheinlich zu viel gewesen, das gleiche vom Brabham BMW Turbo zu erwarten. 20. Runde, vorne also die beiden Renault Turbos, jetzt in umgedrehter Reihenfolge. Im Bild der führende Alain Prost, zweiter René Arnoux, dritter ist Didier Pironi Ferrari. Das sind die 3 einzigen Turbos, die noch im Rennen sind. Nach 20 Runden bereits 3 Turbos ausgeschieden, nur noch 3 im Rennen. An der 4. Stelle liegt Carlos Reutemann, 5. ist Keke Rosberg, 6. John Watson und 7. Niki Lauda, der Alboreto und Lafitte überholt hat. Niki Lauda also bereits an 7. Stelle und nur noch einen Platz hinter den Weltmeisterschaftspunkterängen. Ich habe es Ihnen am Beginn gesagt, Lauda ist stärker einzuschätzen, als der 13. Platz in der Startaufstellung besagt. Es ist zum ersten Mal seit 10 Jahren, dass Niki Lauda einen Ford 8-Zylinder fährt. 1972 March, Sie erinnern sich noch, das allererste Formel-1-Jahr von Lauda. Und dann kamen die Jahre mit den 12 Zylindern, BAM, Ferrari und zuletzt der Alpha 12.
Last year at Kyalami, the race was blighted by the fact that a lot of the top entrants were not there. Ferrari weren't here, Renault weren't here, Alfa Romeo weren't here, because of the political struggle between Pisa and Foca. But now they're back, and so are the spectators.
Yes, well, Niki Lauda I'm watching obviously with a lot of interest. Man, my vintage of racing, and he's going extremely well now. He's disposed of Lafitte and Alboreto. He's worked his way up through the field very well, and he's now got John Watson in his sights. He's about 4 or 5 seconds behind him. So we know John Watson is an established common denominator, as it were, top-class driver. They're in the same car, and so it'll be interesting to see now if Nicky can make any impression on him. I think he's closing a little bit, but it won't be a fast thing, and it'll be very interesting to see whether they go to battle if they ever get into a line of third situation.
Didier Pironi, there he is in 3rd position on his 23rd lap now, with the 2 Renaults in front of him, and the question is, what is the gap between 3rd place man Didier Pironi in the Ferrari that we're looking at now, and Carlos Reutemann, who is in 4th position? If the Ford Cosworth engine cars can score points here at Kyalami, they will be on much more of an even-Steven basis after this race. Pironi then, and as we look at the young French charger in the Ferrari, Barry Gill has news from the pit.
Well, first of all, Murray, I've just talked to a very disappointed world champion, Nelson Piquet, who said, yes, he did bluff the start, but then he had trouble with locking rear brakes. He managed to avoid a crash once, and then the second time there was nothing he could do about it. As I left Nelson, of course, when Tracy came in, oil pressure problems on the Brabham car. Both the Brabhams are out. Bad news also, I'm afraid, for 2 of the British drivers. Poor old Nigel Mansell lasted just half a lap until the electrical problem that plagued him this morning put him out of the race. Don't worry, because the most unusual problem, because they use larger tyres than most of the other teams, the track temperature here is 130 degrees, so he's already had to come in to change all 4 tyres. Shiva's got electrical problems, and poor old Gilles Villeneuve in the Ferrari, once again, an engine problem. 6 casualties already. Back to you, Murray.
Yes, and the engine problem that Gilles Villeneuve had was obviously a repetition of the turbo problem that Ferraris have had for a lot of last year. But Pironi, thus far, and we're looking at the 3rd place man now, seems to be avoiding that problem, and he's going on his way without any trouble at all. As I say it, Didier Pironi slows up and comes into the pit. Well, my goodness, it pays never to make a prophecy. And this is going to be tyres, obviously, or are they just checking the car while they change the tyres? There goes his team manager. talking to Pironi without the benefit of an electrical headset. And now, of course, with Pironi slipping down through the field, that means that Carlos Reutemann can come up and take third place. It means that Keke Rosberg can come up and take fourth position. James.
Yes, they've got a bit stuck on the left rear wheel there. Everything's spinning the wheels, it's still on the jack. So a bit of a slow pit stop for Pironi. He's noticed two front wheels then and have finished a long time before, so Pironi's lost a fair bit of time. It's interesting to see what he can make up. But I think tyres may play quite a big part in this race. I was speaking to the McLaren drivers before the race, Lauda and Watson, that they were worried both on temperature and wear for the tyres. They reckon they were pretty marginal for the tyres to last the race in healthy condition with enough rubber on. And before that, they'd have to worry about them getting too hot. Well, it's obviously afflicted Pironi, and he's not the first one who's been in. Of course, the turbos, because they have more power, going a bit quicker through the fast corners, will strain the tyres, put a considerably more load on the tyres, in fact, than the normally aspirating cars. But that doesn't, of course, mean that they will have any less trouble. There is Reutemann, is it? Or did it? Yes, Carlos Reutemann up into third place, driving a very steady race and picking up the pieces of the turbo cars, which one would expect to have a little more trouble with reliability. They don't have the long-running experience, of course, that these Cosworth engines have.
As we look at Carlos Reutemann, I can confirm that he is definitely in third place, and this is the man that won the 1981 South African Grand Prix, albeit without any of the turbo cars here. And ahead of Reutemann are the only two powerfully running turbo cars left in the race, those of race leader Alain Prost and his teammate René Arnoux in second position. And behind Carlos, who finished second in the 1981 World Championship after a disastrous race at Las Vegas, and has been brought back into the Williams team after he said he refused to drive with Alan Jones, who's sitting out there in Australia watching this race, if Alan decided he was going to come out of retirement. Well, Alan stayed on the farm, and Carlos Reutemann has come back. And there is John Watson, number 7, who is well up through the field now. He is in 5th position. John Watson, who drove a terrific race here last year in the old Marlboro car, the McLaren, and he actually led the South African Grand Prix in the M30 it was, McLaren. John Watson led the South African Grand Prix last year for 2 glorious laps before he slid down through the field and actually finished in 5th place in 1981.
So they might be expecting
round the left-hander at beyond Ford and up to the S's, and on lap 28, the order. René Arnoux, Renault leads. He is in second position behind Alain Prost. My apologies. Prost leads, Arnoux second. In third position, Reutemann. In fourth position is Rosberg. In fifth position is John Watson. And in sixth position now is Niki Lauda. And there, Watson, number 7, in that fifth position. So Niki Lauda, the ex-world champion, has fought his way up through the field, partly due to others dropping out, and he is now actually in World Championship points in his first Grand Prix for 2 years.
Immer noch John Watson, nach einem Trainingsunfall heute in den Ersatz-McLaren umgestiegen. ...28. von 77 Runden. Ungefähr ein Drittel der Distanz ist also absolviert. Giacomelli, Reutemann, Borgut, ich verstehe die Regie hier nicht ganz. 300 Millionen Fernsehzuschauer in aller Welt sind heute live dabei, um Niki Lauders Comeback-Rennen zu zeigen, zu sehen, und dann wird der Österreicher so gut wie fast nicht gezeigt. Watson und Borgut. Borgut, der Schwede, der einen 3-Jahres-Vertrag bei Tyrrell unterschrieben hat. Hier wieder Watson.
It's still Frost leading Arnoux, and there is going to be a change. Is it? Coming up towards us now, 23 is Bruno Giacomelli, and there, coming down the end of the long, long street to Crowthorne with the blue flags waving to indicate that a driver wishes to pass another one and he should give way. That's a heck of a place to do it at the end of that 200-mile-an-hour straight. And now with not so very far off half race distance completed, because we are actually now on lap 31 out of 77. In what is, as predicted, going to be a race of attrition, with Nigel Mansell out of it, the English driver in the Jean Clair Special, with Piquet out with brake trouble, with Villeneuve out with, I think, turbo trouble, with Patrese out with oil pressure trouble, with Didier Pironi having been into the pit to change his tyres, and they come up to go over the line and complete yet another lap of this Kyalami circuit. And John Watson is challenging and now taking Andrea De Cesaris. And there is the Tyrrell, and that is the second of the two Tyrrells. That is Slim Morgood, the Swedish driver, in his first Grand Prix in the Tyrrell team, because last year he drove an ATS. He's had a lot of problems in practice, including going off twice and removing several corners of the car. It looks as though he's trying to restart, and obviously he's decided, I've never seen anybody doing this before, reversing a car along the circuit, but he's obviously trying to, I have not the remotest idea what Morgan thinks he's up to.
Trying to execute a three-point turn, I think, Barry. He's got a lot of traffic going past, but certainly a most extraordinary manoeuvre, but he's finally got away. He must have had a spin there, and his nose is flapping, as you see, so I hope he goes slowly, because if that blows off, it looks as if it could, apart from the potential damage it could do to him, it could blow into the face of a following car. That's a potentially dangerous situation. John Watson still fighting his way through the back markers. The Lauda is closing in a little bit, but he's got the two Alphas to get rid of before he can challenge properly.
Into the pits comes Slim Morgan, and you can see what the trouble is. It looks as though the whole of the nose section of the car has come adrift. There's Ken Tyrrell just out of the picture. Is he going to be tired? Can't possibly be, surely. Anyway, there is race leader Alain Prost on his 33rd lap now. And where is the second place man, René Arnoux, in relation to Prost? The answer is a long, long way back in comparison with the gap which existed between the two Frenchmen earlier on. So Prost out on his own now, on his way at the moment to his fourth Grand Prix. This outstanding young man from Saint-Chamond, who has been in motor racing for some 36 years. This is his 26th Grand Prix. And we're back again now with Morgan, who has very rapidly rejoined the race, has obviously had that nose section thrown on the car again and secured firmly. And it's still Prost leading Arnoux, with his third place still coming. Carlos Reutemann. In fourth place is still Keke Rosberg. In fifth position is still John Watson. And in sixth place, still in the point, Niki Lauda. And coming up through the field now at a tremendous speed on his new tyres and really taking advantage of them is Didier Pironi in the Ferrari, back in the race in seventh position. And everybody up to seventh man has been lapped by the leader, Alain Prost, but in eighth position and lapped by Prost. And a very fine drive, confirming the view of many people that it's the star of tomorrow, is Michele Alboreto in eighth position, lapped by the leaders, and we're staying on picture with Slim Morgan.
Yes, we apologise about this solo performance by Slim Morgan, but it's beyond our control, and don't quite know what the local TV director is doing, but it's none of our making, I'm afraid. We'll try and get back to the race in a moment. We just hope he switches back for you. In the meantime, a word about Alan Prost, and there's John Watson finally come into view, but that's possibly only because he's near Slim Morgan on the track. I'm just trying to identify the number. I'm pretty sure it's Watson. Alan Prost last year proved himself as well as being a very fast driver, which we saw when he was in the McLaren and everything, but an extremely mature, thinking man, very intelligent, very cool approach, doesn't appear to make any mistakes under pressure. Just John Watson sweeping through, just going to challenge Morgan. Of course, you'll find Morgan a little bit hard to catch, because if Morgan did put some new tyres on there, that's quite a big advantage to go out on cool tyres that give you a good bit more grip to start off with. And of course they've got a bit more rubber, so Watson will have to work hard, and he wants to keep working hard. He's got a race going on, he's chasing Rosberg, and he's got Lauda behind him, and he'll be very interested in keeping the gap away to Lauda, if for no better reason than his own personal pride.
Well, the gap between Keke Rosberg, who is in fourth position, and John Watson, who is in fifth place, is about 7 seconds, or was, as they went past our commentary point here at the end of their 34th lap. And the race has settled down for the moment. There on the left of the picture, the Renault going through at the end of the straight, and you see there the positions after 27 laps, and we are well ahead of that in terms of actual race laps, because we're now on lap 36. But the positions are still the same, as you see on the caption there, as we look at Alain Prost. 3 victories behind him. This could well be his fourth. The man who is tipped to be world champion of 1982, even this early in the season. And he's a man who, well, he's not entirely new to the thought of being a world champion, because he was the junior kart world champion as long ago as 1975. Now, Prost coming up to cross the line and complete his 36th lap.
Well, the race is now developing in the middle, because Watson is pretty well up on Rosberg's tail. Meanwhile, Lauda is lurking not very far behind at all, is closing in a bit, and Pironi is, of course, hauling them all in very fast, and only a few seconds behind that. So we've got a big battle at the moment going on for fourth place. That looks as if it's starting to develop, so let's hope that the local TV director spots that, and we can have a look at it.
8 seconds between Alain Prost, the race leader, and the second place man, René Arnoux. And the seconds are ticking away as we wait for the third place man, Carlos Reutemann, to come through in the Claudia Williams, which now has a new name on the side pods of the car. And it's now 40 seconds since René Arnoux went through. There is Carlos Reutemann. He's 43 seconds behind Arnoux in third place, and in fourth position, Keke Rosberg is 7.7 seconds behind his team leader. But now, the interest in this race is that John Watson is right with Keke Rosberg. There they are. There is the battle for fourth position. Ahead of them are Reutemann, Arnoux and Prost. But this is the excitement, the battle for fifth position between the white car, the leader of these two, who is coming up to lap one of the ATSs, and and the man who's driving the white Williams car, number 6, is the Finnish driver, Keke Rosberg. He had a terrible season last year in the Fittipaldi car, and he's going through, and now Watson spun off at one point here, but was perfectly all right, and now he's passed. And John Watson has taken a great deal out of the lead that Keke Rosberg had over him. Rosberg in 4th position, and we could well see a change for 4th place soon.
Yes, Watson may be close enough to get the draft to have a go at him on this long straight upon which they've just embarked. He doesn't seem to be making much impression right now. I think he's going to have to start the straight just a little bit closer in order to have a go. Meanwhile, behind them, Lauda has been passed by Pironi, the turbocharged Ferrari, using its power advantage, and it won't be more than a couple of laps probably before we see Pironi coming up to attack this battle for 4th place from behind. Meanwhile, Watson's dropped back just a little bit. Keke's probably found a bit of a charge with a threat to his rear end. And we're watching to see how quickly Pironi can haul him in. He's not quite in sight yet from our camera angle. He's only about 3 seconds behind.
Fahrer zu sein, der schnellste Nicht-Turbopilot. Das ist immer noch Watson, unmittelbar hinter Keke Rosberg. Kyalami liegt sehr hoch, ungefähr 1800 Meter, und in dieser dünnen Höhenluft verliert ein Turbomotor nur etwa 10% seiner Leistung, ein Saugmotor dagegen 20% seiner Leistung. Der Grund ist ja ganz klar, die Höhenluft ist dünn. Der Turbo verliert weniger, weil die Luft praktisch reingeblasen wird. Der Saugmotor saugt die Luft an. Aber das, glaube ich, wissen Sie und ist sicherlich kein Geheimnis. Wenn es eine perfekte Turbo-Rennstrecke gibt, dann jene hier in Kyalami bei Johannesburg. Jetzt entschließt sich die Regie, Didier Pironi zu zeigen. Hinter ihm liegt Eliseo Salazar mit einer Runde Rückstand. Das heißt, im Rennen liegt Lauda hinter Pironi an 7. Stelle.
The battle for 5th position between the white car, the leader of these two, who is coming up to lap one of the ATSs, and the man who's driving the white Williams car, number 6, is the Finnish driver Keke Rosberg. He had a terrible season last year in the Fittipaldi car, and he's going through, and now Watson spun off at one point here, but was perfectly all right, and now he's passed. And John Watson has taken a great deal out of the lead that Keke Rosberg had over him. Rosberg in 4th position, and we could well see a change for 4th place soon. And you saw there John Watson moving up. Alain Prost still leads. And we hope we're going to see a picture soon of John Watson to get the confirmation of that. Alain Prost leading. René Arnoux in 2nd place. Reutemann is still 3rd. In 4th position, it is still Keke Rosberg. And who is that touring in?
No, stop. Watson got past Rosberg at the end of the straight. Just as we had it over, then he outbraked him. And as far as I can see, no?
That's Prost touring. Prost seems to be going much, much slower. Alain Prost, we're getting the turbocharged cars are in trouble, and Alain Prost is one of them. He's been passed by car after car. This is the previous race leader. A race of real problems, and you can see that. His front wheel has locked up, and you can see the brake is locking up. And it looks as though Alain Prost's race is run on lap 41, and this is going to blow things wide open, because it will mean that only the 1980 South Africa, and look at his rear tyre, off goes the wheel.
Prost was not only in trouble, that's the problem. Prost's front wheel was off the ground because he has punctured his rear side rear, as a result of which the car is dragging along the ground.
Yes, that's why his front wheel was in the air. He was had a flat left rear, but he will be able to, hopefully, not done too much damage to the car. He may be able to get out into the race again, and we could see some fireworks from Alain Prost if he hasn't lost too much time. Hard for us to tell how much he lost on the road.
Well, a couple of laps of real excitement. So now let's just collect ourselves and look at what the race situation is.
In the lead on lap 42 is the sole Renault which is running at the moment, and it is that of the 1980 South African Grand Prix winner René Arnoux. In second position now, it's Carlos Reutemann, the man who won last year. So we have the 1980 winner leading, the 1981 winner second. In third position, the second of the two Williams cars, Keke Rosberg. In fourth position, it is still John Watson, but now up into fifth place has come Didier Pironi, who is motoring through the field with tremendous speed. And in sixth place, still in the points, Niki Lauda, ahead of seventh place man, Michele Alboreto, driving a storm of a race. Alboreto, who only had his first Grand Prix drive last year, an ex-Formula 3 champion of Europe, and has driven a lot of Formula 2 as well, is really taking to Formula 1 like a duck to water. He used last year to settle down, and now he's decided to extend himself, and there is the current race leader, number 16, René Arnoux. Hopefully we'll see a picture which will tell us whether Alain Prost has come out of the pits and rejoined the race. If he does, we can expect to see some real fireworks, because he will be on fresh, reliable tires. And Arnoux waved. Did you see that? René Arnoux took his right hand off the wheel and made a signal to his pits as he went through.
Yes, I think he was thinking he's going to come in. It looks like he's coming in for tires as well. So we've got a real seesaw going on here. But it seems to stand to reason, because we've already seen Prost puncture a tire, and I'm sure that was through wear or overheating problems. It seems that maybe the teams and the power company between them misjudged the severity of this new surface combined with the heat. They haven't had it as hot here during practice, so they were probably guessing a bit, and it does look possible that they guessed a bit optimistically.
Well, this will be real drama if René Arnoux comes into the pits to change tyres. We know that the turbo cars are having to use tyres of at least 2 compounds harder than the Ford Cosworth-powered cars. And as James has said, it could well be that this is causing a problem. But over the line for another lap completed goes René Arnoux, and I'll try and give you the gap between him and Carlos Reutemann.
It's a long, long gap, but if Arnoux does have to come in and change cars, that gap will very rapidly disappear. And there's still this terrific battle between Rosberg and John Watson, with Didier Pironi coming up through the field, currently in 5th place, and Lauda in 8th position.
Yes, in the event that Arnoux does come in and change tires, the gap at the moment is such that if all goes well, he should still rejoin the track just in the lead. But of course he's got plenty of time, and with his speed advantage over the enormous aspirated cars of Reutemann, it shouldn't matter if he hasn't changed the tires. Meanwhile, Pironi has slipped past Watson and is now challenging Rosberg.
And
And Pironi is coming through the field like lightning because he is now closing up on and probably going to have taken by the time we see him next Keke Rosberg. So, currently the order is Arnoux, Reutemann, and then Rosberg in third position with Pironi gaining fast.
Yes, of course. But Arnoux's big threat now is Didier Pironi. And if he wants to beat him, and he is having tyre trouble, he should get into the pits quickly and get onto some new tyres. Because staying out there will only be a disadvantage to him. And he must do it fast. Now, this is where a driver's ability to think and his pit's ability to inform him properly are very important.
Rosberg up into third, Pironi up into third place, and Rosberg displaced. Lap 46 is the lap that we are on now. It's a 77-lap race. There it is. And now Watson is now, look at this. There is Didier Pironi, who is now third. Behind him, in sight, is Keke Rosberg fourth. Then right on Rosberg's rear wheels is John Watson in fifth place. You just caught a flash of Rosberg there. But this is the man of the South African Grand Prix at the moment. Number 28 in the V6 turbocharged 600 horsepower Ferrari, Didier Pironi, going up place after place after his tyre changes.
I do suspect that he is. I think he's making a big mistake not pitting now.
Well, as we see Alain Prost pass René Arnoux, and don't forget the Prost is on new tyres. Here is Barry Gill with more news from the pit.
Well, the news is of that man, Prost, Murray. You remember commenting at that British Grand Prix when Renault made the almighty mess of the tyre change. He came down the pit road with the left rear with no tyre at all, just the rim of the wheel, and yet they changed 4 tyres in seconds, and he went out to do what you've seen him do now. And the other tyre change we must comment on was Pironi, exactly the same. Came in, he gambled on a softer compound than some of the other cars. It was a gamble that failed, but my word, isn't he making up for it?
He certainly is, and on lap 48, Arnoux, the leader. There he is. He has been passed by Prost, who is pulling away from him, understandably, because Prost is on fresh new tyres, but René Arnoux is the only man to have completed the full 47 laps so far. It's still Carlos Reutemann second, and somebody off there. It looks like Derek Warwick. It is. That is Derek Warwick's Tolman, the turbocharged Tolman of Derek Warwick in the catch fencing, and you saw Derek Warwick walking away from the car, so he is clearly perfectly all right. And if he was limping, it was simply because he had a bit of cartilage trouble in his leg before the race started. That means that the Tolman has completed some, just looking very quickly at our lap chart, and Derek Warwick can be proud of the fact that he has completed a good slice of the South African Grand Prix in very, very demanding, enormously hot conditions. And it will be this heat that is affecting the tyres so badly, but it is still René Arnoux leading Reutemann with Pironi third, Keke Rosberg fourth, John Watson fifth, and Niki Lauda in sixth position.
Yes, well, Watson has now Keke Rosberg seems to have reduced a bit. He's about a second behind him. They're playing more of a watching game than an attacking game. And sadly, Niki Lauda has fallen away quite a lot. In the meantime, Pironi is gobbling up the gap to Carlos Reutemann, and although funnily enough, Pironi's charge seems to have slowed down a little bit, which makes me think that there's a possibility, of course, that his tyres, when they were fresh, they were fine, but they've probably got up to full temperature now, and he may just be, the edge may have gone off them. But he's certainly got all the speed down the straight, so he shouldn't really be a problem. That, I think, is Reutemann, possibly no, that's a picture of Keke Rosberg. on his own. Watson just out of sight behind him. Yeah, you saw a little glimpse of Watson in the background, but you see his immediate challenge has faded a bit. Whether he's having the same trouble as Lauda, which whatever that may be, makes one immediately thinks that his car's running a bit too hot, or whether he's just having a little work to gather himself up for a later challenge. Letting those go through the work now, one can only surmise.
Verlieren, ja nicht am Drehzahl zu verlieren, damit man die vollste Geschwindigkeit auf der Geraden hat. Und diese Gerade dauert, wie gesagt, 1,5 Kilometer. An den Boxen war Elio De Angelis. De Angelis und dahinter Didier Pironi. De Angelis hat Zeichen gemacht, Sie haben es gesehen, überhol mich links. De Angelis war vorige Saison schon im Streit von Lotus weggegangen, hat bereits einen hochdotierten Vertrag bei Alfa Romeo unterschrieben. Colin Chapman hat aber dann $2 Millionen, das sind über 36 Millionen Schilling Ablöse verlangt. Elio De Angelis konnte nicht zu Alfa gehen, musste bei Lotus bleiben und das war die Chance für Andrea De Cesaris, für den natürlich bei McLaren nach dem Engagement Niki Lauders kein Platz mehr war. Lauda fährt fürs erste Mal nach so langer Pause ein großartiges Rennen. 6. Platz. Wir dürfen viele Dinge nicht vergessen, wie sich die Autos inzwischen geändert haben. Dann, wie viele neue Fahrer in die Formel 1 gekommen sind. Es sind nicht weniger als 18 Fahrer, die jetzt in der Formel 1 neu dabei sind. 18 Fahrer, die damals 1979 in Montreal, als Lauda zurückgetreten ist, noch nicht in der Formel 1 gewesen sind. Beginnend mit dem vielleicht besten Fahrer der Gegenwart, Alain Prost. Jacques Lafitte, Ligier, Talbot, Matra. Lauda hat sich über Lafitte einige Gedanken gemacht. Er weiß vom Training her, dass der Talbot Matra auf der Geraden um 5 Stundenkilometer schneller ist als der McLaren mit seinen 277 km/h.
Because Pironi is on Michelin tires, as is Jacques Lafitte, and incidentally the Talbot of Jacques Lafitte and Eddie Cheever, the American-Italian driver who is driving for the first time in the Talbot team. Neither of the Talbots have really shown in this race at all. Jacques Lafitte, who drove so superbly last year and was at the last race at Las Vegas actually in with a chance to win the World Championship, and is the man that we're looking at now, has not done at all well at Kyalami. In fact, in practicing, Jacques Lafitte was only the 11th fastest on the grid, and Eddie Cheever was way down below that. So obviously, the 12-cylinder Matra-powered Talbots are not as well suited for this Kyalami circuit as they were for some of the circuits at the tail end of last year. Jacques Lafitte then coming down the long straight out of West Bank and completing another lap. Goes past me now with the Talbot sounding in very good condition indeed. As we look at Alain Prost there, or is it René Arnoux? Very difficult. There's René Arnoux, race leader René Arnoux. Now, is he going to pull away from these two cars, including number 10 there, which is the ATS of Eliseo Salazar, and number 3, which is Michele Alboreto's car? If he does not pull away, we can be sure that René Arnoux is in some sort of trouble and going a lot slower than he could do. And he's not pulling away very much because the differential in speed between the Renaults and the Ford-powered cars here is absolutely enormous. Meantime, Alboreto is going past and taking the inside line at Crowthorne. And now you see that René Arnoux has indeed, as the race leader, pulled out quite a gap over the Tyrrell and the ATS behind him. And we're still waiting on lap 54 for the second place man to come through. The second place man, of course, being Carlos Reutemann, and it's now nearly 30 seconds since. And there goes Reutemann, 32 seconds behind the race leader, and Didier Pironi is now only 4.2 seconds behind Carlos Reutemann. So Pironi in the Ferrari on lap 54 out of 77 is closing up hand over fist on the Williams car of Carlos Reutemann, who is in second place.
Well, what's happened now is that undoubtedly René Arnoux has slowed down. The question that we can't answer here is whether he slowed down to preserve his tires and slowed down voluntarily, you know, as it were, to nurse his car to the finish ahead of Pironi, who's the big threat, who's only about 37 seconds behind him and going well, or whether he's going as quick as he can on failing tires, in which case the race is wide open.
Well, I've got the stopwatch running on the gap between René Arnoux, who has just completed a lap, and Didier Pironi, who is in third place, gaining fast on Carlos Reutemann second. And we will be able, therefore, to tell you, lap by lap, what the gap is between those two vital cars. And the answer is that at the present moment, the gap between René Arnoux, the race leader, and Didier Pironi in third position was 35 seconds when they went past me. You are looking at a caption at the end of 47 laps, whereas we are now on lap 55. In a rapidly developing, from the point of view of excitement, South African Grand Prix at Kyalami. I was going to start talking about the weather earlier on in a typically British vein, but I had to stop. It's worth saying now that every day we have been here, that is René Arnoux that we're looking at, every day we have been here, it has rained except today. And today has been notable in that the weather has been absolutely superb, getting hotter and hotter all the time. And the track temperatures must be very, very high indeed now and causing tire trouble. Second position. Now very soon we will be seeing come into the picture not just the white and green Saudia Williams car with its Ford Cosworth V8 engine, but the scarlet Ferrari of number 28 Didier Pironi. Lap 57 of the South African Grand Prix, the race is developing into one of enormous excitement. Leading it is René Arnoux, who led for a long time to lose that lead to Alain Prost. Prost then had to go into the pits with a shredded rear tyre. Arnoux retook the lead. And in second position, it is Carlos Reutemann in the Saudia Williams car, last year's winner. But there is a sensational drive being put in at Kyalami behind Carlos Reutemann by Didier Pironi, the Frenchman in the turbocharged Ferrari, who has had to go into the pits to change his tyres, came out in 8th position, has climbed up through the field like a rocket, and is now closing fast on Carlos Reutemann, who is second. Equally sensational is the progress of Alain Prost, and you are now looking at the race leader, René Arnoux, who is on his 58th lap. But equally sensational is the progress of the previous race leader, Alain Prost. because after he had put on a new set of Michelin with, I understand, a softer compound, his progress has been nothing short of meteoric, and he is now up into 4th position. So, on lap 58, you are looking at the leader, René Arnoux. Behind him, Carlos Reutemann, about 35 seconds. Pironi gaining fast on Reutemann in 3rd position. In 4th position, it's Alain Prost. In 5th position, it is Keke Rosberg. In 6th, it is John Watson, and in 8th position, it is Niki Lauda, still going well.
Aus allzu harten Rad-an-Rad-Kämpfen heraushält. Er weiß ja von den wenigsten Fahrern, wie sie im harten Zweikampf reagieren. Alboreto kommt mit einem Rückstand von 2 Runden jetzt dem führenden Arnoux etwas näher. Und das ist endlich Niki Lauda. Start Nummer 8. Jetzt sehen Sie ihn endlich in der 57. Runde. Niki Lauda liegt an der 6. Stelle. Zweiter Boxenstopp von Lafitte mittlerweile. Lafitte tut Lauda nicht weh, er liegt deutlich hinter dem Österreicher. Lafitte war ja der Fahrer, der voriges Jahr bis zum Finale in Las Vegas noch eine Chance hatte, Weltmeister zu werden, gegen Piquet und Reutemann. War von allen 3 damals am weitesten nach vorne gekommen im Rennen, lag an 2. Stelle, bis der Reifen wechseln musste. Wurde aber mit der Walter-Wolf-Trophy für den größten Kämpfer des gesamten Rennjahres 1981 ausgezeichnet. 18:17 war am Ende das Stimmenverhältnis Lafitte gegen Villeneuve. Das war eine fast historische Runde, die 57. Sie haben Niki Lauda gesehen, der an der 6. Stelle liegt. Das ist Prost. Sie haben vielleicht gesehen, links hinten, wie die Verkleidung flattert. Der Wagen ist sicher unstabil auf der Geraden.
Reutemann, although he's doing a magnificent job fending off the Ferrari of Didier Pironi, looks pretty powerless to do anything about the progress of Alain Prost, who's absolutely flying now.
Lap 60, 77 lap race. Is Pironi going to get up to and pass Carlos Reutemann on this lap and take 2nd place? Where is Alain Prost in relation? There is Arnoux going through, completing a lap. The last time I put the watch on the gap between Arnoux and Pironi, who is in 3rd position, the gap was 25 seconds. It is now 15 seconds since Arnoux went past me. Keep the watch running, and there goes Reutemann, and Pironi is still 3rd, and right behind him is Alain Prost. And the gap between Pironi in 3rd place and Arnoux, the race leader, is down to just under 22 seconds. But a terrific scrap for 2nd place, with Reutemann currently 2nd, Pironi currently 3rd, Prost currently 4th. Pironi and Prost have both been in for fresh tyres. They have both caught Reutemann, and there is going to be a battle royal for 2nd place, I predict, between Didier Pironi and Alain Prost, both of whom should be able to get past Carlos Reutemann.
Yes, well, Murray, I think Pironi's tyres have seen the best of their career already, because he caught Reutemann up very fast, and he now seems to have sort of got stuck behind him. It doesn't seem to be making much progress, but Alain Prost has been catching hand over fist, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him passing at least one, if not both of them, in the next couple of laps. It just depends how the Renault and the Ferrari match for straight line speed, because Pironi, of course, if the Ferrari is faster on the straight, He's good for... Yes, Pironi. And they both pass Reutemann. As they go past our commentary position, Reutemann is now fourth. Pironi is up in the second place, and Prost has followed him through to third. So, are we looking at the right map? No, we're looking at very hard at the moment. Still out with a fairly comfortable lead with enough time to go. But it does seem that Prost is going to have some difficulty getting past René Arnoux. And if we could just get the cameras to watch that battle, we'd be able to have a look and assess what's happening.
To see where he is to maintain station. But with René Arnoux now completing his 62nd lap as he goes down the long straight to Crowthorne. Keep the watch, I've got the watch running now, and the gap.
And Alain Prost has just outbraked Didier Pironi into the hairpin and is now clear up into second place. Terrific drive by Alain Prost. I don't suppose he can catch his teammate now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has a go. He's now clear away in second place. We'll get the gap to René Arnoux and just see what he can do.
And on lap 63, it is still Arnoux with Prost then in second position, with Pironi third, with Carlos Reutemann down to fourth position. As we look at the Renault now, and there is Didier Pironi in the Ferrari in third position, now seeing Alain Prost pull away from him. And this is the commentary. There's the second place man, Alain Prost, the man who came into the pits with the shredded left rear tire. And it looks to me as though his rear wing has loosened in the process. And I'm waiting now to get Arnoux over the line and get the... You are looking at Alain Prost with something flapping on the fairing on the back rear of the car. You can see a bit of the actual streamlining has broken loose and will be affecting the handling of the car.
Yes, Mo, that was done when the tire burst. It was flapping, the threaded tire, and it damaged the bodywork a bit. And I think that's been like that ever since. So hopefully it hasn't, well, it doesn't appear to have hurt his progress so far.
So Arnoux is still leading at lap 64. It's a 77-lap race. There isn't all that far to go. The interest is now not who is going to finish in third position, because that is clearly going to be Didier Pironi, but how the Renaults are going to share out the first and second places now. René Arnoux has just completed his 64th lap. Alain Prost, his teammate, with that shredded fiberglass bodywork, is in second position, and the gap is 11.4 seconds between the race leader and now Didier Pironi in third position is about 3 seconds behind Prost, and then it's Reutemann in fourth position and going extremely well.
Well, by my calculations, although I have to confirm this in a couple of laps, Prost can catch and beat René Arnoux, and there's a strong possibility that despite not only having to stop to change tires, but having to limp around half a lap on a puncture, that he can now win this race. And his progress is absolutely meteoric. We'll have to see exactly how much per lap he's catching René Arnoux to work it out right. There's a big gaggle of cars there. I think it's mostly back markers. A real mess, but they seem to have sorted themselves out without any contact.
Lap 65 now, 77-lap race, and it's René Arnoux leading with, in second position, Alain Prost, and down to third place has gone Didier Pironi in the Ferrari. But the interesting fact is that Alain Prost has damaged the bodywork of his Renault, notwithstanding which he seems to be gaining on René Arnoux, and the order is Arnoux leading Prost. In third position is Pironi. In fourth position is Reutemann in the Williams. In 5th position is Rosberg in the Williams. In 6th position is John Watson in the Marlborough. In 7th position is ex-world champion Niki Lauda. And in 8th position is Elio De Angelis in the JPS.
Siegerliste hinter Jackie Stewart mit 27, Jim Clark mit 25 und Furman El Fangio mit 24 an der 4. Stelle. Rosberg, De Angelis, Lauda, Giacomelli und dahinter Watson. Rosberg ist 5., Lauda 6., der dazwischenliegende Elio De Angelis eine Runde zurück an der, ich glaube, 9. Stelle. Das ist Rosberg. Lauda also 6. und mit großen Chancen noch 5. zu werden. Wieder zurück zu René Arnoux und Michele Alboreto. Wird natürlich sehr gern gesehen, wie sich das Überholmanöver Niki Laudas gegen John Watson vorbereitet, wie es Lauda gelungen ist, immer näher an Keke Rosberg heranzukommen. Rosberg, der ja die ersten Runden sogar vor seinem Teamkapitän Carlos Reutemann gelegen ist. Wie es also Lauda gelangt, immer näher an den Williams heranzukommen. Lauda ist an Rosberg bereits vorbei. Das heißt, Lauda ist 5. Jetzt auch Giacomelli an Rosberg vorbei. Giacomelli hat aber Rückstand eine Runde. Niki Lauda an Elio De Angelis vorbei. De Angelis lag ebenfalls eine Runde zurück. Niki Lauda hat also jetzt in den letzten 11 Runden des Grand Prix von Südafrika ein sehr, sehr starkes Finish. Er hat sein Auto bis jetzt, glaube ich, ein bisschen geschont. Er hat abgewartet, was sich an der Spitze entwickelt. Er hat gar nicht versucht, das Höllentempo der 6 Turbowagen.
A change of position as we look at the screen there, because the man who has come back to racing, Niki Lauda, after being out in 1980, out in 1981, has caught and passed his teammates. And there, number 8, is the brilliant Austrian Niki Lauda, who is now, therefore, up into 6th position. And Prost is leading. We haven't seen it on the screen, but we've had a message, and Pironi comes into the pit. Pironi is into the pit. I'm sorry to talk off picture, now I'm talking on picture. There is Didier Pironi, and that means that Carlos Reutemann is going to go into 3rd position. Tremendously exciting stuff at the end of the South African Grand Prix.
I think Arnoux must be in trouble because Prost caught him so fast. There has to be some sort of problem, which could mean that Reutemann is now firing at 2nd place. Pironi appears not to have gone into the pit. He's limping round. That, I think, is Pironi going slowly on the inside, but I can't really see the purpose of that. Although, of course, engines popping and banging, it's pretty difficult to fix. If he can limp to the line, he might get a place, but I doubt it at that speed.
Well, I think it is another pause and consider time, because on lap 69, as we look at Niki Lauda in the red and white Marlborough, and Elio De Angelis, number 11, who is in the John Thayer special. And it is still Alain Prost in the lead from René Arnoux, with in 3rd position Reutemann, and Pironi obviously in trouble, and that means to say that up into 4th place will come Niki Lauda.
Yes, well, Niki Lauda's found a new lease of life. He's caught past his teammate John Watson after struggling to stay with him for a lot of the race. But in the meantime, Carlos Reutemann is now only 6 seconds behind René Arnoux, who's in second place. Reutemann, of course, in third. And if René Arnoux is in trouble, as we surmise that he is, he's not going to hold that second place at the current rate of progress. Didier Pironi has just limped past our commentary position into the pit, so he looks to be out of the running after a fighting drive back to the field when he stopped to change his tyres. But the interest must now turn on second place.
Well, Pironi from third position, as you can see for yourselves, in the pits, and that means to say that his chance of finishing in the points has been lost, because we are now on lap 71, and it is Alain Prost leading in the Renault, having brilliantly regained that first position. And there he is, identifiable quite apart from anything else by that flapping bodywork by the near side rear wheel. René Arnoux still in second place, but now up into third position on lap 71. Out of 77 comes Carlos Reutemann. In fourth place, Niki Lauda, a superb comeback after 2 years out of racing. He has clearly lost none of his stamina. There is Prost passing number 17, Jochen Maas, who, like Niki Lauda, is making a comeback to racing after having been out of it during 1981. And Jochen Maas, behind number 15, the leader, is driving one of the two March cars. Alain Prost then must surely have his fourth Grand Prix win in only his third year of racing, firmly in his grasp. He has gone through the field, he has caught and passed René Arnoux. The gap is extending. In fact, it is now 7 seconds. There goes Arnoux through. It is 10 seconds between now. The gap between Arnoux, who is second, and Reutemann, who is third, is only 3.5 seconds. 13 seconds cover the first three. We are looking at the race leader. Prost, with the flapping bodywork, is 9 seconds ahead of René Arnoux, but René Arnoux is being caught by Carlos Reutemann as Prost, the leader, swings across, takes the apex of the turn, and is now on his 72nd lap. A worrying time this, I've said it before and I will no doubt say it again. Prost coming now out of West Bank up to the crest. This is the 200 mile an hour longest straight in Grand Prix. And is Carlos Reutemann catching René Arnoux? There goes Prost completing the lap. Arnoux will be the next one up on the leaderboard, and it will be more than interesting to see where Carlos Reutemann is in relation to it. And the answer is 2 seconds. Carlos Reutemann is only 2 seconds as we look at the race leader behind the second place man, René Arnoux. We could yet see a situation where 6 turbocharged cars, 2 Renaults, 2 Ferraris and 2 Brabham BMWs started this South African Grand Prix and looked as though they would cakewalk it, but have a turbo Renault winning and a normally aspirated Claudia Williams in second place. Pironi into the pits, and on lap 73 it is Prost still, Arnoux still in second place, Reutemann is still third, Lauda is fourth, in fifth position it is Keke Rosberg, and in sixth position, and I'm just going to take the gap once more as the leader comes up into the top straight. And over the line any moment now will go Alain Prost. There he is, and he's into Crowthorne. And what is the gap between the second and third then, as the leader is well on his way? And it's Carlos Reutemann second. Carlos Reutemann has got ahead of René Arnoux. So Arnoux is in trouble, and you will see now, there is Reutemann taking Crowthorne. And behind him, a Renault that is obviously in trouble because the brilliant Carlos Reutemann, who came back to racing after saying that he was going to retire,
after his bitter disappointment in doing so badly at the Caesars Palace Grand Prix, who won here in South Africa, is going to be second this year if Prost keeps going for the rest of the race in his current position.
Well, a word I think I must have about Niki Lauda's race, because he stuck with it. He hasn't driven the racing car for 32.5 years in anger, and it's very hard work to come out in this heat. It's very hot here in Johannesburg today, and he stayed with it. He struggled in the first half of the race. He caught his teammate John Watson eventually, and Keke Rosberg in the what last year's all-conquering Williams, probably the best chassis, and he's up into fourth place. I don't think he'll catch René Arnoux, who's running third, unless Arnoux's trouble deepens a bit, whatever it may be, because he's quite a long way behind. But an outstanding fighting drive when physical exhaustion must have been a major factor for Niki.
Ein paar Worte über den führenden Franzosen Alain Prost. Der fährt heute seinen erst 27. Grand Prix. 3 Siege bis jetzt, und zwar alle im vorigen Jahr. Dijon, Zandvoort und Monza. Im Training war er Fünfter, heute Vormittag war er Vierter, also eigentlich nie der Schnellste. Und er hatte gestern zusätzlich noch einen Unfall zu verdauen. Reifenplatzer gegen die Mauer, und der Wagen wurde repariert. Allerdings der Turbo dürfte etwas abbekommen haben, vielleicht hat er ein bisschen Dreck hineinbekommen. Auf alle Fälle hat Prost gestern im Abschlusstraining über einen deutlichen Leistungsverlust geklagt. Und das war auch der Grund, warum er nur, unter Anführungszeichen, den 5. Startplatz belegt hat. Prost war ja der Mann, der vor einem Jahr von McLaren zu Renault übergetreten ist. Und dieser Übertritt hat eigentlich diese Affäre mit der...
Didn't think as many would disappear as have. With both the Ferraris out, both the Brabham BMWs of world champion Piquet and Riccardo Patrese, his new teammate, Gilles Villeneuve out early, Pironi out now, and we look at the race leader on his last lap but one.
Yes, well, I suppose we have to thank the turbos for having the dramas that they did, because by about a third of the way through the race, it looks as if we've got a very, very boring procession on our hands. And what with the puncture to Alain Prost and his subsequently stirring drive back through the field after losing a lot of time because he had to limp round at half a lap. Arnoux slowing down, Pironi's fight back through the field, followed by his unfortunate demise with what sounded like engine trouble. He was popping and banging. But in the end, we got a very exciting race. And it's settled down now. It's a little bit processional, unless there's any major mechanical drama here. Arnoux is too far ahead of Lauda, who's in fourth place, to be caught, unless his trouble deepens, as I suggested earlier. But and Prost is comfortably ahead, and Reutemann has driven a typically immaculate race, no problems, no fireworks, good and steady into an excellent second place.
And Alain Prost comes out of Ford corner up to the S's. He is now on his last lap. That fourth Grand Prix win is almost in his grasp as he comes out of Westbank. He really could coast home now and win, but he's coasting not at all. Alain Prost approaches the finishing line on his last lap at some 200 miles an hour and completes it to win the South African Grand Prix, the second Renault victory in 3 years, and last year they weren't here. And now we wait for Carlos Reutemann, and there he goes. Carlos Reutemann has finished second. René Arnoux will be third, so it will be first and third for the two Renaults. And a famous victory for the French team. There goes René Arnoux over the line. And not so far behind him in fourth position, Niki Lauda. Niki Lauda on his comeback drive had finished in fourth position. A terrific effort, because being out of Grand Prix racing for 2 years and having to adapt to these cars takes a lot of doing. Keke Rosberg fifth position, and John Watson is sixth, and that is the completion of the points orders. We've seen some superb racing. Let us fervently hope that this is the end of the politics, of the trouble that we've had with the drivers, although there is a big meeting to come next week, and that the remaining 15 Grand Prix of the 1982 World Championship are going to be as good as the first, this one at South Africa, Kyalami.
War ein hervorragender Fußballer, der knapp vor dem Transfer zu Saint-Étienne stand, dieser großen Mannschaft des Fußball-Europacups. Alain Prost war Europameister der Go-Kart-Fahrer und hat dann einen Durchmarsch gemacht von der Formel 3 in die Formel 1. Vielleicht das größte Talent, das es im Augenblick in der Formel 1 gibt und sicherlich der große Favorit auf den Gewinn der Weltmeisterschaft 1982. Heuer vielleicht das erste Jahr, in dem es mit einem Ford Cosworth-Motor nicht mehr möglich ist, die Weltmeisterschaft zu gewinnen, auch wenn Carlos Reutemann als Zweiter und Niki Lauda als Vierter heute großartige Rennen gefahren sind. Für die technisch interessierten Zuschauer, der Renault Turbo wird mit einem Ladedruck von 1,7 bar betrieben, hat 580 PS bei 10.800 Umdrehungen, Bohrung mal Hubi 86 mal 42, 6-Zylinder in V90 Form angeordnet und der Hubraum ist genau 1491,7 Kubikzentimeter. Der Block ist gegossen, das Benzinsystem ist Einspritzung natürlich und der Doppelturbo kommt aus Deutschland. Ich hoffe, das genügt den technisch interessierten Formel-1-Fans unter Ihnen. Hier sehen Sie den jubelnden Empfang, der Alain Prost dem Franzosen hier bereitet wird. Der Franzose hat also nahtlos dort angeknüpft, wo er eigentlich 1981 aufgehört hat. In 7 Grand Prix-Rennen hintereinander in Führung und Führungskilometer mehr als alle anderen. Im Gesamten 1083,4 Kilometer. Ein sehr schönes Comeback von Carlos Reutemann. Man darf nicht vergessen, dass sich Reutemann ja erst ans Autorennfahren wieder gewöhnen musste und umso größer natürlich die Anerkennung für Niki Lauda, der ja 1,5 Jahre in überhaupt keinem Rennwagen gesessen ist, bis er dann im April zunächst einmal in der McLaren-Fabrik gewesen ist, bis er dann im September die berühmten 48 Runden von Donington gefahren hat, um zu schauen, wie die heutigen Rennautos überhaupt gehen. Dann kamen die langen Testfahrten in Le Castellet. Hier sehen Sie Carlos Reutemann. Die langen Testfahrten, wie gesagt, in Le Castellet. Dann kam nicht zu vergessen auch ein Unfall in Le Castellet, als links hinten die Radaufhängung gebrochen ist. Niki Lauda hat diesen Unfall mit 280 Kilometer pro Stunde weggesteckt und der hat gesagt, letztlich beweist dieser Unfall, dass ich mir das richtige Auto ausgesucht habe, nämlich den McLaren MP4, der mit Kohlefaser und Glasfiber in einer Art Sandwich-Bauweise gefertigt wurde. Die Teile werden in Amerika in einer Raketenfabrik erzeugt, nach England geflogen, werden dort im McLaren-Werk in Woking zusammengebaut. Damit die ersten 9 Punkte der Weltmeisterschaft 1982 für Alain Prost. 6 Punkte für Carlos Reutemann, Rückstand 14,8 Sekunden. Dritter René Arnoux, Renault Turbo, Rückstand 19 Sekunden. Vierter Niki Lauda mit dem McLaren, Rückstand 33 Sekunden. Fünfter Keke Rosberg, Finnland, 44 Sekunden. Und sechster John Watson mit dem McLaren, Rückstand 48 Sekunden. Dann mit einer Runde Rückstand 7. Alboreto auf Tyrrell, 8. De Angelis auf Lotus, 9. Salazar auf ATS, 10. Giacomelli auf Alpha, 11. Jochen Maas auf March, 12. Winkelhock mit dem 2. ATS. Ein sehr gutes Formel 1 Einstandsrennen für den jungen Schwaben aus der Nähe von Stuttgart. 13. Andrea De Cesaris. Und das ist ungefähr also das Bild des heutigen Grand Prix von Südafrika gewesen. Es ist für Sie zu Hause, glaube ich, auch ein bisschen turbulent hergegangen. Die vielen spannenden Überholmanöver, die vielen Aufholjagden, die diesen Grand Prix spannend hätten machen können. Naja, vielleicht wird es beim nächsten Mal besser klappen. Es geht weiter Anfang April mit dem, Anfang März mit dem großen Preis von Argentinien. Rio wird dann gefahren, dann Long Beach und Ende April kommt der Formel-1-Zirkus dann nach Europa und zwar nach Imola. Noch einmal also Alain Prost mit dem Renault Turbo, gewinnt nach 76 Runden. Eine Runde zu früh wurde abgewunken mit 1:30:55,71. Zweiter Carlos Reutemann, Argentinien auf Williamsford, Rückstand 15,306. Dritter René Arnoux, Frankreich, Renault Turbo, 22,6 Sekunden. Vierter Niki Lauda, Österreich, McLaren Ford, Rückstand 32 Sekunden. Fünfter Keke Rosberg, Finnland, mit dem zweiten Williams, ein sehr guter Einstand für dieses Team mit 45 Sekunden Rückstand. Sechster John Watson, McLaren, der Teamkollege von Niki, 49 Sekunden zurück und damit je einer Runde Rückstand. Siebenter Alboreto, achter De Angelis, 2 Runden zurück, Salazar, 3 Runden zurück, Giacomelli, Maas, Winkelhock, 4 Runden zurück, De Cesaris und Daly und 15. mit einem Rückstand von 5 Runden der Brasilianer Bösel. Das ist einer der beiden ausgeschiedenen Brabham BMW Turbos und das ist der siegreiche Renault Turbo von Alain Prost. Runden, das stimmt nicht. Gefahren wurden nur 76 Runden. Ein glücklicher Alain Prost, ein erschöpfter und zufriedener Carlos Reutemann und René Arnoux, der es heute in der Hand gehabt hätte, nach 2-jähriger Pause wieder einen Grand Prix zu gewinnen. Vierter Niki Lauda. Und was das bedeutet gegen die Fahrer, die natürlich die 2,25 Jahre nicht nur pausenlos im Trainings- und Renneinsatz gestanden sind, sondern die natürlich mit der Technik bestens vertraut waren, die alles gewusst haben, Dinge, die sich Niki Lauda erst beim Testen und beim Training hier arbeiten musste, das glaube ich, können Sie zu Hause selber beurteilen. Links Carlos Reutemann, in der Mitte Alain Prost, rechts René Arnoux. Für Reutemann das beste Ergebnis seit seinem zweiten Platz im Grand Prix von England. Nachher wurde er nur noch 5. in Zeltweg, 3. in Monza, 10. in Montreal und 8. in Las Vegas. Für Prost der 4. Grand Prix-Sieg in seiner Karriere nach Dijon, Zandvoort und Monza. Und für René Arnoux mit dem 3. Platz das beste Ergebnis seit dem Grand Prix von Österreich, in dem er 2. geworden ist, hinter seinem französischen Landsmann Jacques Lafitte. Hier schlägt natürlich der ganze Wirbel um die 3 Ersten zusammen. Hier steht immer noch 77 Runden, gefahren wurden aber nur 76. Prost, Reutemann, Arnoux, Lauda, Rosberg und Watson. Und schauen Sie, Niki Lauda hat John Watson noch 18 Sekunden abgenommen auf den letzten 18 Runden. Er hat sich die Fahrt wirklich klug eingeteilt. Und er war im entscheidenden Augenblick zur Stelle. Auffallend ist, dass Jean-Marie Balestre, der FISA-Präsident, noch nicht auf dem Siegespodest erschienen ist. Vor 2 Jahren hat es hier einen Riesenwirbel gegeben, 3 Franzosen auf den ersten 3 Plätzen. Ich weiß nicht, ob Sie das Siegerinterview hören können. Ich höre nein, meine Damen und Herren. Noch einmal das Ergebnis im Grand Prix von Südafrika. Alain Prost gewinnt vor Carlos Reutemann, René Arnoux und Niki Lauda. Entschuldigen Sie die vielen Schwierigkeiten, die wir hier hatten. Ich hoffe, es wird bei den nächsten Rennen regiemäßig besser klappen. Ich schalte damit von Kyalami zurück nach Wien und wünsche Ihnen noch einen recht schönen und spannenden Samstagnachmittag.